as far as
multiple things are set. But that was like, I was like, I don't know what that says. I'm like, so what's the test of chicken?
Okay, we're going to call tonight's meeting to order. People here first, eh? So we're going to, I just want to remind everybody to silence your cell phones. Thank you. And we're going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then we'll read tonight's mission statement. I think we went down the whole table, so I might be back to Debbie. Want to read it, Debbie?
Sure. Lakeland Joint School District's daily mission is to maximize student learning and ensure every student is growing academically, social, emotionally, and behaviorally every day in all environments.
Thank you. We did not receive any patron input for tonight, so we're going to go on to report and presentation agenda. And first up is sources of strength presentation. So Dr. Marsh, I'm going to introduce that.
one of the trustees had a question about the sources of strength. So I thought it would be in our best interest to explain a little bit more about it, what the grant entailed, what the curriculum entails, and the best practices and research base. So with that being said, can the three of you go, and I'm going to introduce you from here just because of social distancing. I want to tell the people that we've brought tonight. I don't know if you, probably all, she's famous, but Stacy Lawler is the Idaho State Teacher of the Year, and the district's never had one before. And we've talked quite a bit. It was a huge surprise. It was so much fun last year. I can't even tell you, one of the highlights of my life. And she was so grateful and humble, and she's really grown in the position. And her focus, she'll tell you a little bit about it, but I just want you to know it fits in perfectly with the sources of strength. She was doing this program before she was even chosen as Teacher of the Year. So this was a lot to do with her focus on social emotional learning of our students, and she's really passionate about it. And then the other two, Heather Hamilton is at Apple Elementary, and she came to us from industry. She worked a lot of expertise in the industry, working with suicide and in the private industry, and she's been with us 2 years, and she's absolutely amazing. And then Cassie Martinez, I had the pleasure of working with at Garwood Elementary when I was the principal there for 3 months, and so I got to work really closely with her. I was also a former school counselor, so I have a lot of links to people. So I just wanted to thank you all. I know it's hard to present during the summer and get all dressed up when you've been not, so we really appreciate you being here, and I just really thank you for your time to tell the board about it. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Heather Hamilton, and I'm a school counselor at Apple Elementary School. I'm a licensed master level social worker. I'm also the elementary school counseling team lead, and I led our suicide assessment protocol task force, including our suicide prevention practices and protocols. Today we're going to be going into our sources of strength program. The elementary program looks very different and is formatted very differently than at the secondary level. But before we get into that, I wanted to cover a little bit of the why and go into some of the legalities of our suicide prevention policies and protocols in our school district. And I'll try to stay on time so that we can really delve into some aspects of these amazing programs that I'm really excited about. All right, this is one of my favorite quotes by Brene Brown. And it really reminds me of our district because our district really models integrity consistently. So we're gonna do the right thing, we're gonna do what's best for kids, even if that means having to have tough conversations about safety and about best practice, and even doing things differently than we've done in the past. As we know, Idaho ranks consistently as one of the highest suicide rates in the nation. But for students, we still see annually a pretty significant concern. So between 2012 and 2016, we had 105 school-age children die by suicide. 27 of those were ages 14 and younger. And then it's also the second leading cause of death for Idahoans ages 15 to 34. Okay. So what are the Idaho State Board requirements for school districts? So the Idaho State Board requirements mandate that every school district have a comprehensive suicide policy and protocol, as you can see outlined here, which includes suicide prevention. Currently, we revamped our policy and protocols in 2018. We have a very robust intervention plan, which really, we've been a leader in North Idaho with regards to these efforts. But I really wanted to call attention to the last line in paragraph 1, and it says the district will, in sole discretion, offer the following services programs to provide proactive suicide awareness, education, and prevention for all of our students. And today, with the sources of strength, we're going to be focusing specifically on the prevention aspect. In your folders that I handed out, you have a copy of our Lakeland School District Suicide Prevention Policy. So you can review that more in depth at a later time. And then you also have a copy of Idaho Statute 83136. And this statute states that each school district is required to have a comprehensive suicide prevention, intervention, and post-vention policy and procedure. It also states that the State Department of Education, the Idaho State Department of Education, will create a model policy so each school district can model their policies after. I've included in your folder the copy of that model policy as well. So again, the Idaho Department of Education requires us to have prevention, intervention, and post-vention protocols. This is a picture of their website. In order to increase suicide awareness and prevention efforts in Idaho, they have partnered with leading suicide prevention experts and the Sources of Strength to bring these programs to Idaho. If you visit their website, you'll actually see a link to Sources of Strength, and they explain a little bit of the background history of the program and the grant that Idaho had in 2014 to bring the Sources of Strength to secondary schools. At the bottom, I've embedded a link to the model policy. I believe that's the second document on the left-hand side. And I just want to call your attention to the prevention aspect, which is that first, I believe it's the first bullet there. And under that, you'll see youth prevention, suicide prevention programming. And what the Department of Education recommends is that each school district have a suicide prevention program K through 12 in all classes. And that program be developmentally appropriate and follow state messaging guidelines. And that model policy looks like this. Again, what we'll be focusing on today is prevention, and the Sources of Strength program falls under our policy umbrella of our proactive prevention and education strategies, but it also is compliant with ADAPA and the youth prevention programming expectations. As far as our current prevention, I did include a slide here that goes over basically everything we're doing to help students be the healthiest version of themselves. I'm not going to go through all of the things that we're doing for sake of time, but one of the biggest blessings to our school district really has been receiving this grant for this elementary curriculum. It's really unprecedented. The cost for this program to be implemented, it would have been thousands of dollars. Initially, Lakeland's very we applied for a grant for all 6 of our elementary schools and actually received grant funding for all 6 of our schools, which is really unprecedented.
The only district in the state.
Only district in the state. Coeur d'Alene School District, several of their elementary schools also received funding, so they're going to be doing this at their elementary schools as well. But I'm really proud of our district and our team who turned this grant around in a 2-week time frame during a lockdown on spring break. So woo! Okay, and on maternity leave. So okay. So as far as prevention goes, we know that we need protocols for reducing risk. We know we need staff education, student education, parent education. The Sources of Strength program falls under the staff education and the student education. As a part of the grant, we get a free gatekeeper training for all of our elementary school staff. So that will be occurring September 1st is when all of our elementary school staff will be getting that gatekeeper training. We've already talked about social emotional learning, but what we know is when students are the healthiest version of themselves, they outperform students with disabilities. We know that the higher the social emotional competencies, the higher the more improved learning outcomes. We know that they're better able to manage their behaviors in the classroom. We know that those competencies increase students' reading, writing, critical thinking, vocabulary skills, academic achievement. We also know with research that resiliency and grit, which are main foundations of our program, Sources of Strength, we know that those 2 components are better predictors of success in college than SAT scores or IQ. We also know that resiliency is associated with improved quality of life, well-being, and functioning in times of adversity. I think a pandemic would fall under adversity. All right. So on to our Sources of Strength elementary curriculum. So why this program? It's really unique in that there really aren't any curriculums available at an elementary school level. Most of suicide prevention efforts revolve around intervention, so you're intervening once the suicidal crisis has already occurred. What's amazing about this program is it's really focusing on improving those protective factors so that the suicidal crisis doesn't emerge to begin with, and we involve the whole school community. This curriculum is for 3rd to 6th grade. They are creating, they're currently developing K through 2nd, and it's a universal classroom-based curriculum. I think there's like 12.
There's 12 units.
12 units. The lessons are taught in the classroom for 20 to 30 minutes, which is the same amount of time we currently use for our guidance lessons. It's very interactive. It's from a growth mindset perspective, and the suicide prevention aspect is talked about in a developmentally appropriate manner.
And it's very strength focused versus risk factor focused. It's very hopeful. They use a lot of those terms versus like crises, risk.
So you're learning, but the great thing about learning, and I think you probably have experienced this with your own children, what did you learn today? And they look at you and they're like, can't tell you. It's because they don't know that they're learning. It just becomes a part of the fabric of who they are. And that's what I love so much about this program is they're learning and they don't even know that they're learning. It's just becoming a part of who they are, and it's going to set them up for success currently and in later life. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Cassie so she can dive into the specific lesson units.
So every elementary counselor goes into the classrooms weekly, K-6, and does different social emotional learning lessons. So Sources of Strengths is able to kind of pull all the curriculum we use into one unified curriculum that we can utilize. So that's for us going into classrooms and just kind of picking and choosing, and this is a savior for us because we get to teach intentionally, in aligned. So I just put up the different units that our elementary students will be going over, and then the wheel is a big part of that unit. So the wheel, each section of the wheel is one of the lessons that we'll be teaching the students, and those are all their strengths. So we'll go over for your family support, who are family members that you find you can go to if you needed help. And they talk a lot about that families look different. It could be your traditional mom, dad, grandma, it could be extended family, it could be chosen family. So that we're talking about all the support that they have, all the adults that are in their lives. And we're not defining what family is for that individual as well. We're letting them define it for them. So we'll go through that whole wheel with the students. They also talk about the brain and body connection, which is a huge piece in our, a piece of our second step lessons that we used to teach, so that students can understand that when we have our mental health as well. So you'll see like healthy activities, physical fitness, or physical health is part of that wheel as well. But we'll talk about the actual chemistry of our brains and our bodies and how that all interconnects. Emotional regulation, we've been doing a lot of zones of regulation. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of that, but it ties into zones of regulation, which is what we've been doing at the elementary level to teach emotional regulation skills. And then the next slide, you'll be able to see the table of contents in detail. So those 12 units broken down into exactly how we're teaching them and the order that we're teaching them. We just went through a 2-day training last week on sources of strength curriculum, and they are starting to adapt some lessons to be virtual and to be used during remote learning. So we're kind of thinking ahead of like how that will look, working with them on how they want to implement some of that virtually as well. So we can still roll the curriculum out, and it may look like more of a soft start this year.
And one of the things that they said in our training, and it really resonated with me, he said the absence of disease is not health. And I think sometimes that we forget about that just because we don't have a disability or a disease doesn't necessarily mean that we're functioning at our highest level of health, and that's really what this program is about.
So we are going to take a walk around the wheel. So I printed out the wheel for you, and I apologize, my brand new color printer did not print beautifully. I didn't know how to explain that, but we're gonna walk around the wheel. So this will be actually one of the lessons that we will do with our students, where they get a wheel, and then we will start to put up some of, and you'll actually see Stacy's got this really cool picture of her secondary students and their wheel on their wall. It's really neat. But I just want you to think in your mind, we're gonna start with family support, and we'll just do a couple of these just for time. Who would you list as someone who is a support for you, that you consider family? So just kind of think about it for a second. For me, I would definitely list my mom, I would list my brother, I would list my best friend Jordan, because it could be chosen family as well. And then what we would have the students do is then write down those people. It could be the names of the people, or it could be characteristics of that person. And they would just write it in that blank in the wheel. Did anyone think of anyone that they want to share?
My spouse, my husband.
Yeah, my wife, for sure.
It's my best friend, so.
Good. The other one I wanted us to do, because I know like when I read it, spirituality, I was like, oh, you just think religion automatically. So I wanted to touch base on that as well. We did the spirituality activity as part of our 2-day training. And spirituality is what grounds us, what energizes us. It could be reading outside. It could be one of the team members, she likes to do yoga. And when she was at her hardest point, she turned to yoga. So that was her grounding exercise. It could be going for a walk. It be fishing. It could be fishing. It could be coloring, drawing, golf. Yeah, whatever brings you back, right? That brings calmness. That brings you more energy. Running, yes. And for some kids, of course, they're going to bring up religion because for them, that's what they see and what they get their spirituality from. But I also wanted to let you guys know that it is not religion-based when we talk about spirituality. It's anything that brings us back, kind of centers us. And I know we've been going into classrooms and teaching a lot of mindfulness activities. I know I did a lot of those virtually in the spring of, and we did like the 5 senses, how to ground, how to listen to what's going on, realign our thoughts, those types of things. So that's what we're going to be focusing on when we go into spirituality. And then also mental health, like how do we ask for help? What does that look like? Destigmatizing this idea that asking for help is weakness, or I have to like pull myself up by my bootstraps. So how do we ask for help? What does that look like? Recognizing some signs, some symptoms. So we'll have conversations like that. So that's the walk around the wheel, and the kids will get to do each of those activities, not all one time, but throughout the sessions. And secondary, okay.
I guess to start, I'll just put our wheel up here. At the middle school level, it's going to look a lot different. What we do is we are not only doing a school program as far as like the entire school, but we are doing stuff inside our health room. We are doing stuff outside of that. So I kind of want to give you guys a little overview of the wheel and really what sources of strength to me is. I preach this all the time. I talk to my students about it. If you were to ask any Timberlake junior high student what their sources are, they're going to be able to tell you based on our wheel because we talk about it that much. This sources of strength program, they talk about it as a waterfall. And the waterfall is a kid who's suicidal, and we don't want to try to catch them right here. We're not going to make any ground. We're going to do all trying to like Band-Aid. What we want to do with this program, and it works, I'm telling you that I'm going to catch those kids before they get to that point. So what we are doing is we are giving kids coping skills for life. Yeah, suicide may come up. You may have a kid that's suicidal, but really what we're talking about is trying to give them their sources so they understand. So each one of these 8 pieces are a really important part of the wheel. So if I were to go up, my daughter a couple years ago was struggling when she came home from college, and I sat her down as a 20-year-old and I said, Keely, what are your sources? And she's like, I don't have any. So what we did, and what I did as a parent, is I sat her down and I said, we got to fix this. What can we work on? And she said, generosity. I can work on generosity. So she went back to Montana Tech and started volunteering. She started working on that piece. So the idea of this is to catch them before they get to a crisis situation. And really that's the whole premise of it. At our school, we do a lot of school campaigns. So we've got big pictures all over our wall. Some of the ones that we did last year is trusted adult. Kids need to be able to know who their trusted adult is. They need to be able to know who their mentor is. They need to be able to have one person at the school that they can go to. So what helps me, again, what are these 3 things? The idea with the sources of strength is that it's like a net. If you've only got one of those pieces, so that example that I gave with my daughter, she had one is not going to catch you. If you've got at least 3 of those, that's going to be able to catch you in time of a crisis. So if you think about the visual of one of them is not really going to help you. It's good that you've got your spirituality or you have your generosity, but it's not going to catch you in time of crisis. So the more sources that you have, the more strengths that you have, the better you're going to be. So what helps me is just simply talking about what are your sources that are going to help you in time of a crisis. The big 3 is we talk about when people get emotions, they get angry, they get sad, and then they get, what's the other one? Sadness, yeah, it's anxiety, depression, and anger. So talking about what help when you are feeling one of those, because most of us kind of gravitate towards one. For me, I'm anxious, so I always gravitate towards anxiety. What are my things that help me when I'm feeling one of those big 3 emotions? And then I am thankful for, because being having some gratitude and being grateful also kind of helps us, and that's on one of our things as well. So that's kind of some of the big campaigns that we do at our school. We do a lot of stuff outside of our classroom. We've got our family dodgeball and spaghetti night where we just invite families out, and if they want to ask us questions about sources of strength, it gives us a great opportunity to do some bonding. That was kind of like our big last thing that happened before COVID hit. We also did some Christmas caroling at the senior center, and then we always participate in the Life Awareness 25K run relay. So those are some of the things outside of the classroom that we do. And then the big thing for me, I'm a health teacher, so I teach this in my classroom. So we spend quite a bit of time talking about sources of strength. When students leave my classroom, they are gonna know all 8 pieces, and they're gonna know what their strengths are. They're also gonna know what their weaknesses are. So that in a nutshell is what we do. I know I went really fast because these ladies did a great job talking about sources of strength, but I am a huge proponent of that. We use at Timberlake Junior High, we use our Sources of Strength program in line with the CORE project, which is a social emotional program. So we actually use those 2 things at the same time. We have an early on Monday, and I'm not sure how it's gonna work this year because of COVID, but we actually have a time where kids are either working on the CORE project or they're working on Sources of Strength. So we take 30 minutes out of every Monday to make sure that we talk about those things. So.
Do you guys have any
Questions?
Do you incorporate the practice of mindfulness in all the curriculum, all of the, you do, okay, at every level?
Yeah. And if you just looking at a lot of those, you can bring that into mental health is mindfulness. You can talk about that in generosity. It really kind of hits the gamut on all of them.
And from the elementary, we haven't had source of strength yet, but we have been doing mindfulness activities K-6 for the last several years now.
So would you say that mindfulness is probably one of the biggest things that kids take home from this? Or I notice it's really weaved throughout the whole curriculum, and the whole meditation and focusing on the colors and picking the object and staring at a single object and all those things that the children or students are being taught, these coping skills. Would you say that that's pretty important?
At the middle school level, absolutely, is we're teaching them how to cope with stuff. I have kids emailing me in the middle of the night, I'm having a panic attack, and immediately I go to the wheel. What on the wheel can you use to kind of get through this? Right. So yeah, absolutely, this is coping.
And it's overall focusing on strengths and you know, and being able to move through a crisis in a proactive way. And I think that's one of the strengths of this program. So.
And I think mindfulness is so broad as well. Like just one example of using it this past school year with my kindergartners. My lesson was right after first recess. So they would come in and they would be not ready for me. So I would invite them to the carpet. We would sit in a circle and then we would just talk about our hot chocolate. So we had a bowl or a cup of hot chocolate and we would smell our hot chocolate and blow on it, and it just teaching them breathing and how to calm their bodies and be ready for the next thing. And even something as simple as that is a great strategy for them to learn as they, you know, progress through elementary school. And
is this available for the parents to learn about the program? Because obviously this is a huge tool in day-to-day raising your kids when you have kids, there's a crisis.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have the words to express, and you know.
And this works.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean it really does. I know that. I mean, obviously we've got our family fun night where we encourage parents, but I teach it all the time with my students, and I know that they're going home and they're talking about it. So honestly, I think it would be a great opportunity to bring parents in and explain what source of strength is, because it can help adults too. I was having a bad day a couple of years ago, and I literally went into the grocery store and I'm just like, oh, what am I gonna do? And I had 2 students in front of me and I bought their sodas for them, and they were just like, oh my gosh, that was the news. But it made me feel good. Like they didn't realize that I was actually getting more out of it than they were. Yeah. So it works for adults too.
Yeah, it's not just for children, it really is every aspect of what makes human beings well. And I think that now more than ever, it's an important reminder to do those things more.
Now more than ever, especially with all the social media.
And we've been looking into different ways to bring parents in, especially now that like we really can't physically bring them to some of these kind of activities. But one of our elementary counselors, she created a Bitmoji classroom with the sources of strength. So we're looking at how can we, bring that home for parents and students and have it more of a constant throughout the year.
I think this is a great thing to do, especially at a young age. As being a military family, my husband became a resiliency trainer, a master resiliency trainer, now I'm doing 22 suicides per day. Most of those suicides are actually younger soldiers who don't have those coping skills. And if they don't have anything to pull on when something goes wrong in their life, or if they're under fire, which is a horrible thing, don't get me wrong. But if you have those skills early on, then you know how to center yourself. Okay, calm down, rely on my training, let's go back to what we need to do. So I think this is a wonderful program. And the fact that we're starting at a younger age, I think is even better. And ladies, you do a fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for all you do and the impact you're making. I don't think that I think it's probably a lot of lives you've saved that you don't even know. So thank you for your efforts.
I have quite a few questions, actually. How long have we been using the sources of strength at the secondary level, right?
I think this is our 4th year. I don't know. I'm so bad with numbers.
How many?
I think we did it got it my 2nd year here.
So is that making 4? Is that making 3? Going into our 4th?
3.
I think it's going.
See, don't ask me anything about numbers.
How many other curriculums did we look at before we chose this one?
There really aren't any other
There's not.
curriculums available, and I think that's what's so unique about this. It's kind of why our teams have had to pull and create supplemental materials. We're pulling from mindfulness, we're pulling from growth mindset, we're pulling from the studies on resiliency and grit, and we've been creating activities to meet the needs for our kids, and this is really kind of it's the first of its kind, really. I'm only aware of one other curriculum that's extremely expensive and not highly popular, and that's on the East Coast. This is a great resource for us. But that's one of the reasons why we're continuing to revisit and look at and grow our prevention strategies. We really haven't had a developmentally appropriate suicide prevention specific curriculum available to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you think this is the only one available then? Other than one other that's only on the East Coast, it's quite expensive.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Has the rate dropped since we've
Suicide
been,
rate?
yeah, since we've been using this?
I would not have any idea on statistics like that.
Okay.
And I think it would be unfair to attribute a rate of death by suicide in our district to a curriculum, because there's so many confounding variables of things that are happening, of which you 3 are aware of, that have,
Right.
yeah, so I don't think that would be a good data point for us.
Okay. How would we measure the effectiveness then of the
So
curriculum?
I'm sure they do a pre-test, post-test when they're working with their students on the different wheels, like where are you at as we're working, and it's probably, as Ms. Sexton talked about earlier, a formative assessment that they're probably doing along the way. So I'm sure that's how they're measuring, and I'm not sure the new elementary, if it would be a pre-test, post-test, or I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, they're not quite sure yet, but generally, we overall, as a county, each year and nationally, we see an increase in suicides, including in children. What I can say is definitively, from the feedback I've gotten from all of our team members, is that the current protocol we have in place and interventions have caught kids who were actively suicidal with plans before they acted on those plans. I'm confident that with this programming, with your support, with our leadership, and with our current protocols, that a death by suicide is going to be an extremely rare occurrence.
So along with that, I was going to ask about ideation, but most of that is just, whatever the counselors or the teachers or whoever.
What do you mean, like?
Suicidal ideation, yeah. So they're not carried out, right? But they're talking about it, thinking about it, sharing with their friends. I was just wondering if there was any way that, I know there's not a test, right? We can't measure, but I thought, if you're gathering data or information or trying to get an idea of, like any other piece of curriculum, where do we need to focus more on, what's, working, not working, that kind of thing. I was just curious of the
We do
effectiveness
look
of
at
it.
our counseling teams do meet and discuss, how our buildings are doing as far as crisis and suicide concerns. Our buildings also meet regularly and review the data that we have on student concerns and behaviors and bullying and whatnot. So we're having those conversations frequently. We do have a specific protocol and notification process for when it's become publicized or known that a student is thinking of suicide. And our staff are really good about reporting that, and our students are too. So.
Okay.
Have you guys as a school board taken QPR?
No,
I would highly recommend.
I started to because they offered it for free.
Well, we have there's an online version as well. I would highly recommend doing that because it makes it so you can feel comfortable having a conversation about this really awful and hard topic. So
Right,
it's
right.
very educational.
Yeah. So did the board approve the first implementation of SOS?
Yeah, I talked to the board about it. I don't know if it was a formal action, but they knew that we were applying for the grants, and we had the first time around, we had Timberlake Junior High School, Lakeland Junior High School, and Mountain View, and Lakeland High School, Timberlake High School, and then Lakeland High School added, and now the elementary, so.
Okay.
All 11 schools.
Which will be fabulous for students, especially when we have the K-2 curriculum. We'll be aligned to K-12. Kids are hearing the same language, developing their strengths as they develop. Like, it's gonna be amazing to watch them go from 5-year-olds to 18-year-olds.
Well, we've really done some amazing things, in just the last few years, and not only aligning our practices so that we're compliant with state law, but it really best serves kids and also significantly reduces not only safety concerns, but liability. It's a major liability to not have prevention efforts in place.
And I really think about it as well as, especially at the junior high level, you're giving kids something tangible to look at.
Sure.
And they go, I'm struggling right now, but I know that if I go out and I go exercise, that's gonna make me feel better. And then I can go talk to my trusted adult. I mean, that makes it more like they've got something to hold on to.
Right.
So it's not just like, oh, you're gonna do better, you go see a counselor. I mean, not that counselors aren't important, girls. You know what I mean? It's like you have things, go work on this, get 3 or 4 of them.
Mhm.
Well, and it gives the staff a conversation starter as well. A lot of times the reports are being done in the classroom and the classroom teacher's like, okay, let's go find your counselor now, but now when they're in the classroom, seeing the lessons, participating, they'll be able to pull up the wheel and have these conversations before it comes to us, or start laying some of that foundation ahead of time where, like you're talking about, like the net,
And, the State Department, Idaho State Department of Education worked with Sources of Strength and had a grant in 2014, and the whole, one of the objectives of that was to bring Sources of Strength to our secondary schools. So they're very much a big proponent of this program, and endorse this program for our current efforts, so.
Can you give us a definition of growth mind aspect and explain what that is?
Growth mindset.
Yeah, growth mind.
Mindset.
Yeah,
Carol Dweck is the book.
somebody used the term growth mind aspect.
Mindset.
Okay.
It's coming from a growth mindset. So basically, a growth mindset is a student's way of viewing their own capability to learn. So there's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset, a student doesn't believe that with effort and trying harder that they can learn more or master challenges. It's, I was born being good at math or being bad at math, and it's never gonna be more than what it is. A growth mindset looks at learning that me being challenged and things being difficult is a part of me learning. And just because I don't have it now, doesn't mean I haven't mastered it yet. And what they found with research is that when students and individuals have that mindset, they actually outperform peers that have higher IQ scores and come from disadvantaged schools.
And what about mindfulness? Can you give us an example of what that is? What does that look like? Because I don't know that a lot of people are familiar with the term and its history.
Mindfulness is really just about becoming aware of your body and what your body is telling you about how you're feeling in that moment, and using all of your senses. And it's really important to teach students to be aware of what their body's telling them so that they can learn the skills to emotionally regulate. It's pretty broad. It can be anything from deep breathing exercises to an activity like Kathy mentioned, that's a deep breathing, or it can be an activity like tell me 5 things that you can see with your eyes. Tell me 4 things that you can feel. Tell me 3 things that you can smell. Tell me 2 things that you can taste, and just going through that, because what happens is when individuals are anxious or caught up in their emotions, they're not in the present moment, and so that helps to get them kind of grounded and centered within their body so that they can retain information and think logically and critically.
That's a good definition.
Right.
Yeah, what she said.
Do we keep any data, whether written or recorded, and what happens to the students' work? When you said you were going through the wheel and they write their answer on the wheel, what happens to that written
The stuff that we do
information?
goes home. We send it home with the kids.
Okay.
But then I actually tell them to post it so they can keep track of it.
Okay. What is the highest level of health? What does that mean?
Just essentially having our students be the healthiest version of themselves. And my version of health is going to look different than your version of health. So basically tapping into what each person's individual strengths are and maximizing them. So for me, I may have, 5 aspects of this wheel pretty solidified, whereas a student of mine may only have a couple. And so there's a variance in that. So again, it's very individualized. It's based on each individual's strength. And that looks different, but we want them to be the best version of themselves.
I think I have just one more: emotional regulation. How do you teach that, and what does that look like?
So
What do you got,
Allison,
Allison?
go for it.
It's a complex skill that children haven't mastered developmentally. It's something that they learn. It starts as early as birth. They're starting to learn to regulate, and that regulation comes from the way that the caregiver and parents interacting with the child in times of distress and meeting their needs, and so it becomes a co-regulation. I'm soothing you, you're learning that I can comfort you. Then ideally, with a healthy attachment, they gradually learn that they can self-soothe. The process for teaching a child to emotionally regulate, the foundational skill is having a vocabulary. So we're a meaning-making species. We need to have language to wrap our head around concepts. So we start off as early as kindergarten, really talking about introducing what our main emotions are: anger, sadness, fear, disgust. We show pictures. We have puppets that we bring out. We teach them what to recognize external, like things like body clues, body language. We talk about being an investigator, paying attention to other people's their body language and their facial expressions to tell you how they're feeling. And then we progress our units because it's foundational. So then we move on to then becoming aware of what happens in my body when I'm having an emotional response. And that may look different for everybody. So when I get angry, I know I'm angry because my heart starts beating. And I may get sweaty palms, where somebody else may feel like they can't think, or their muscles might get tight. And so we teach them the different things that happen in their body. And then once we move through that, we start to teach them the different skills to calm themselves down when they're having a negative emotion. And there's specific strategies: deep breathing, distraction, counting, talking about how you feel. There's lots of different healthy outlets to cope with those feelings. So that's just a very simplified version.
Sure.
And the curriculum we used for that was zones of regulation, and it does come with its own little poster that students can use. And what I did with my second graders, our second grade class was had very high needs for emotional regulation this past year. So every second grader had one of those charts on their desk, and they were able to say whether it was nonverbal or verbal, recognize where they were on that scale, and then choose what strategy they wanted to use. So even if they were so frustrated they couldn't vocalize it, they could at least point to where they were, point to what they wanted to do, and then the teacher could help them with whatever deregulation strategy they chose. We've also noticed that students with disabilities, that chart really helped them to be able to vocalize what they were feeling and what they needed. So that type of emotional regulation curriculum is embedded in the sources of strength.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And our second step social emotional learning curriculum also has a unit on emotional regulation as well.
So we're gonna, if other questions come up, we're okay, we email you?
Yeah. At the very end of the slide, there's a references page, and most of the documents that you have in your folders, I also embedded links to those specific pages.
Thank you very, very much.
And you are welcome to stay, but you must go on the Yes, you will. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Dr. Meyer, Chairman Homestead, trustees of the board, I thank you for allowing me this opportunity to come tonight to speak to you. It's been a while. I haven't been here. I used to come, all the time and everything, but I've been watching online and doing all that stuff, trying to show my support and everything. But as part of the LEA, I'm Jason Bradbury. I'm the LEA president or union president. This is going into my 7th year of being the union president. I've been a member of the union since I started teaching back in, I'm aging myself here, 97. So 23 years of teaching. I'm also along with that, I'm the head baseball coach at the high school. And I've been doing that for quite some time. Going into my 17th year doing that. I've been a member of that program for 20 years. I was an assistant, brought up, and then I became the head coach after 2 years. And then I work at Twin Lakes currently. I teach 6th grade. And for those of you that don't know me, and just love being part of this district. I came from a neighboring district up north, Priest River, and very proud of that area. Not so proud of the schools. And so I was really happy to come and be a part of Lakeland, and just love my time here, my tenure, and just all about the good of the district. And that's what kind of our union does is we get together and we talk all the time, and we talk about different policies, things that are going on in the school systems in the district as a whole, and try to help make things run the best we can. So with all that said, coming back into, I guess it's been kind of working for about the last 3 weeks or whenever the original plan came out that you guys did. Obviously, I start getting flooded with phone calls and emails. I'm sure everybody does. And so as a union, it's good because I have an executive council that I can meet with. I have building reps from each building, 2 building reps from each building. And then we have a general membership. Our membership throughout the district is right about 2/3 of all the certified staff in the district. We're currently at officially 160 members. I say officially because the minute the fall starts, the new enrollment will come up and we're up to about 173, which is right about 67% of our membership, 2/3. So really good. We've been seeing a rise in membership, and it's always good. The more people you have in it, the better, because we can work some things out and talk through some things. And so kind of with all of this said, I felt it was necessary after I started getting flooded with emails to get our membership together and start talking about the reopening plan. I'm sure you guys have heard as well, just we get all kinds run of the gamut, both ends of the spectrum. First survey we sent out, it was about a month ago. There was a survey that went out and said, you know, are you in favor? It was just one question, are you in favor of going back to school, or we'd rather do the online model like we did in the spring? That came back right about 50%. And then, so it's kind of hard. So as a union president then, you know, I just have to wait for leadership and, you know, go from there. And so once the plan did come out, we got people together and we started going over some of the things within the different phases. And with that brought about a lot of questions about reopening. And so we got together last week and created a survey. It was just a simple, I believe there's 7 questions on the survey that dealt with most of the people's concerns that we were dealing with. And so I'd like to go through that with you right now. The first one, obviously, and I did send this to you, and Chrissy did, I believe. And so you have it to go over as well. And then feel free, as we go through, if you guys have questions that you'd like, just stop me, interrupt me, or if you want to wait till the end, that's fine too, whatever you guys like. So first question really came about as far as, you know, safety. That's what you're going to hear quite a bit, you know, putting in place the best possible safety measures that we can to come back safely in our school. And so we came up with the question, should temperature checks be given every day for staff and students as they enter? And as you can see, there were 159 people that voted, which is almost 100% of our official membership, which was really good. And so of those, 77.6 said yes, they believe and would like temperature checks. On our meeting on this last week, when I was talking about the temperature checks and the results of the survey with the staff, it was basically just that if our district is going to do everything we can to provide safety, the question arises, why wouldn't we provide temperature checks? It's not the end all be all, but it is one step that would help, and it would help make teachers more comfortable, I think, staff more comfortable. And of course, there's different ends of that spectrum too, but as you can see, the majority of our union membership is for temperature checks. If you go down to the next, this came about with the kids that we're going to have at home doing online lessons, teaching live streaming. Do you think live streaming lessons as you're teaching should be mandatory? And this is the one where we have the most results, or I guess the most, you know, the highest number, you know, over 91% said no, they didn't want to live stream. And when we were talking about that, it really comes down to, you know, the way a teacher, when you're teaching a lesson, obviously you can't just stand and deliver your lesson 100%, go all the way through it without something happening, without students interacting positively and negatively. We were worried as a membership that I fear for those teachers being in a classroom that has to go through and discipline children or redirect children, whether they can pause it or mute the live stream. I think it's opening up a can of worms. So we talked with Dr. Meyer and her team today and think about this, and I think a great option would be to leave it optional, to go from, you know, teachers know that, I think our teachers are going to find that once we go back into this live streaming will probably be the easiest route, because then they won't have to spend all the time on their own time creating those lessons. And so I think you're going to see that quite a few of them do live streaming, but there are a lot of teachers that are very, very sure that they don't want to do that for many different reasons. And so I think that if you just use the word optional there, then it would, kill two birds with one stone and make it a lot easier. Going down to the next question. Again, it goes back to this: do you believe live streaming or pre-recorded lessons will provide students with the best access to content? Obviously, pre-recorded got the most votes. And the reason behind that is you can perfect your lesson when you're doing it pre-recorded. If you mess up or you say something wrong, you can go back, edit it, make it look all great. We worry that in live streaming, especially for those kids that are at home, if they record it and then view it later, they might not get the best lesson. Whereas if you're pre-recording, you can deliver a great lesson. And so our members at that time decided that the pre-recorded were the best. This one, you have to be careful. Don't look at the colors, because the colors on the pie chart don't represent the colors of our stages, their phases of going back. So when you do Survey Monkey, they just automatically throw in a color there, and so you have to read the symbols on the side. But it says, based on the stages that Becky sent out, what color do you think we should fall under right now? And as you can see, over half of our membership thought that we should be in the orange stage. And then 20.5 also said red. So to me, that's a staggering number as far as a whole. We're over 75% of the membership thinking that we should not come back into yellow. We think we should be in orange or red. 2 people in the blue said that we should come back in green, and then 20% of the people said that we should come back as yellow. Agreed with the stages. With the stages, I think after talking with all of my members, the stages from Panhandle Health and our stages don't really match, because obviously we have 4, they have 3. And so most of the people think that our Panhandle Health's yellow stage is really our orange stage. And so when we hear that Panhandle Health is recommending yellow, we think it more coincides with the orange, and we feel the safest in orange as a whole, going from there. And so I just think that, moving forward, it's just really something to look at as far as, what safety measures are there. With the Panhandle Health, or with our stages going from yellow to orange, we spoke to Becky and her team about this today. There's really nothing to.
Well, I did find out from Panhandle Health today, because I talked after me, and they did say that this entire county is in orange, if they had to say today. Again, school hasn't started we still have time, but they did say that I was wrong saying that we were in yellow. That was last week. They did say we were in orange today.
And we've told our membership, and I've shared with them, that the board is constantly looking at this. So is Dr. Meyer, constantly in talk with Panhandle Health, and you guys.
I just wanted you to know they did say orange, so they were using that other color today.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I was wrong today when I told you guys that they did say that today.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's good information. And we were kind of just wondering too, through our phases, what would have to happen to go from yellow to the orange in there. It's not really clear. It's kind of like all one stage. And so, again, it's something for you guys to look at, really ponder, with everything in there, with all the safety protocols and measures in place, what is the best stage? I know you guys are looking at that, and you're going to continue looking at that right up until the start date. So again, that's why I'm here too. I just kind of wanted to let you know. I think, we're a good resource to let you know what the actual, teachers are and the whole union is thinking. The next question. Right now, so that brought about the next question. Are you confident that there will be enough safety measures in place for both staff and students upon reopening the classrooms if we go back under the yellow stage? If we go back right now, and over 82% of our membership said they're not, they don't feel that there's enough protocols in place. We've talked a lot about the mask mandates. We talked a lot about the social distancing, that we don't feel that in yellow, those things can, obviously you can mandate the masks, but social distancing, with yellow, it just can be very difficult to do that in classrooms. And throughout school, buses, we have bus people in our union as well, and you'll see when you read the comments, if you go through them, that there's, they're really concerned about that as well. That's, to me, that when I saw that, when that came back through 159 members, or 156 responses on that question, over 80% of them don't feel safe in yellow right now. That's pretty staggering to me. This question, there's kind of some gray area with it that I'd like to talk about. Would you rather teach 5 days per week with a scheduled prep period at the end of the day and students leave an hour early, or teach 4 days a week with no preps, students staying the entire school day allowing Mondays? So it's basically the plan that we have. And you can see that 55% said 4 days and 45% said 5. Now, the biggest sticking point for this question is teachers didn't realize that, that things like their preps at the end of the day with they don't realize that, like right now, those preps have been really taken away in some of those stages. And so we really want to fight for, it's in our negotiated agreement that we get a prep every day and that we get a 30-minute duty-free lunch every day. And so that's what everybody still wants. And I think it has to be doable, especially for the planning, the preps, planning day in and day out. You gotta have time for your teachers to prep. If we go to the 4-day work week and we prep all day on Monday, I've been in this job for 23 years. A lot of times you can plan for the whole week, and by Monday at 10 o'clock, those plans went out the window because something happens and your kids went one way, one direction, and you realize, oh man, I gotta teach so many other different lessons. They're not ready for this, or vice versa. They like totally get it. Now what am I gonna do? And so to have just one prep on Monday, even if it is 3.5, 4 hours of prep on a Monday, we don't feel is going to be fair so hard throughout the week getting all this stuff done, especially with having to be in class and responsible for the live streaming or the work at home through computers. Now the next 2 questions were just about masks. Kind of talked about it a little bit. Do you think staff should have to wear masks at schools? 69% of our membership said yes. Students was 71%. And then, so that took care of the generalized questions where people had to pick. And then we did open it up for comments. I shared some of those, or all of those comments with you. I had Chrissy do that for me. Thank you, Chrissy. And there was just a question, basically, what do you want us to know? What are your concerns? Things like that. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, to read those. I do know that anytime you do send out a survey that's anonymous, or an evaluation that's anonymous, some of those comments can get negative. I urge you to do what I do when I do it is, if there's one of those comments, yeah, it hurts, it burns a little bit. You just set aside and realize it's an outlier. That's one person. If there's a few or more that are saying the exact same thing, then I urge you to really look at those comments and say, can I change? Is there some validity in what they're saying? Even though it might hurt a little bit. I know there's some attacks on me in there too. I hated putting those in there. But I did, I just put everything in there. I wanted our membership to have voices. One of the biggest things that our membership was saying in our general meeting is they felt they didn't have a voice throughout this whole process. You can argue that a little bit because Becky's done a great job as far as her town hall meetings and her edgy blogs and, you know, things like that. I found through this process, people really don't read unless it's directly important to them. So I think there has been opportunity to learn, but I feel that, again, and I took this, once I start hearing it over and over again, then you have to take some validity to it. And it was clear to me that our members really feel that they want to be involved, they want to help, they want to provide some answers, they want to ask questions. And, you know, I think given the situation with the state we're living in right now, there is no right or wrong answers. I think everybody's a little bit, you know, scared. Some people are fed up. You know, I've heard we just need to be back in school. We need to be in green. Let's get it done and over with. And you know, but other people are on, and you have to honor everybody. You know, you have to honor all those. So I really do encourage you just to read those comments and kind of go through them as I suggested, and look for those commonalities. And I think you'll find some in there that are pretty good, and then maybe we can hopefully get some of those things addressed. I'm certainly available anytime for conversation. We have a tremendous staff at Lakeland School District. Feel free to talk to anybody. There's a lot of wealth and knowledge and wisdom out there, and if you guys need help with anything, you know, just let us know. When we decided that I was going to present to you guys tonight, you know, I got flooded with emails. Please just let me know what I can do to help. You know, if you need help after the board meeting or anything, let us know. I know Becky and Lisa both gotten those same emails as well. I'd like to end kind of summing up everything. I call it the bottom line, but basically from all of our information that we get, the teachers right now today, teachers don't feel comfortable coming back in yellow. I think they would in orange. I think they'd be fine with the orange phase. They would probably be okay in the yellow stage if we took care of the mask issue. I really feel that way. But again, that's another survey that would have to go out. But just given the information, I'm summarizing that. I would also, talking with people yesterday, we thought that the membership thought it would be a great idea that maybe if you guys thought about delaying the start of school for 1 week, for students, not for staff, but for students. We feel that 4 days coming back before we have students isn't enough time. We would like to make sure we have all the safety protocols in place, that we learn all the guidelines that are set out before us. You're going to have, I mean, how many staff do we have in the district? Over 600? 700 now. 700 staff members and so many people, so many questions, and one principal per building, and it's just going to be, you know, we feel that with everything coming on, we would like to, you know, urge you to maybe put the brakes on just a little bit, and that way we can decide, you can decide, tell us what phase we're going to be in. We can get in there and get our feet wet, make sure we learn everything, make sure we feel comfortable before kids come back. It gives us time to prepare, learn those safety protocols, and then just plan for all the reopening. So it's just something that we would recommend, wanting to throw it out to you guys, see if that would be a possibility. I know our neighboring districts are having the same talks amongst their school board and staffs as well. But again, that's your decision, and you know, we'll respect what you guys come up with, but that's our recommendation. We also wanted to point out, or I did, that I realize you guys are in a very tough spot. You guys, we deal with the students, right? You deal with the community and the students and the staff and all the administrators. I mean, you oversee everybody, and you guys are in a tough spot. You know, you might hear it outside the community, non-teacher, non-education people. You might hear one way that you have to fight for, and you have to honor that and respect that. But I also wanted to remind you just that, you know, out of those 700 staff members, a lot of those people are community members too, and please be talking with them as well. Anything that you hear from one person, you know, not that you don't do this, but make sure you do your fact finding, make sure you talk to other people to see if they agree as well. Our staff's a great resource, and you know, so that came up quite a bit in our meeting as well. Last thing, no matter what stage we're in, our membership wants to make sure that we have preps in our lunch every day, so that we can have that break, so that the kids can have that break from us. A kid in a classroom all day long with the same teacher, especially in the elementary school, they're going to be just as frustrated as we are, probably more so. So I think those breaks would be nice, so we're hoping that you will make sure that happens. And then basically from here on out, you know, just feel free to contact us, any issue that arises, whether it's, you know, with me or any staff member for that matter. Just, you know, LEA is all about due process, and I love that part. I know we have someone that works in the law industry, but it's all about due process, making sure that people have their rights before them, and that those are honored, and that we can go through all the correct hoops to make those important decisions. And so with that, I'll open it up for questions, if anybody has any. Or
I just want to make sure that your membership does, this is a fluid document. We're going to be probably making changes to some kind of right up to the open was full, possibly even after, depending on how things. So right now, and we appreciate any input, any help, because you guys are the ones on the ground. You're the ones with the kids. We also, though, have to recognize our position and make sure that we don't overstep our bounds in saying what they're doing in their classroom. So we're just going to be looking at what is best for the students, what's best for the teachers. Are we following the Panhandle guidelines? Are we following Idaho code? That's kind of where we have to stay. So I encourage teachers to really think of a good plan they have for their classroom, because that's their room. Those are their kids, especially the younger ages.
Yeah.
So you really have to take care of their classrooms.
It's just, if I can interrupt, it's just, yeah, so yeah, definitely following the you know, like the mask mandate,
Yes.
it's mandated,
Yeah.
right? But
And I've
right
gotten
now
a lot of emails about that.
But like right now, we're choosing not to.
Nothing's been, like I
Right.
said,
But as
that
it-
was just a draft, so I want you to not, you know, just realize that this is very fluid. We're taking all of this input, I'm taking it to heart. At the end of the day, I'm going to make the decision based on what I feel is safest for kids, best for teachers. And if that's, if we're all wearing masks and that keeps our kids in the classroom in front of our teacher, I think that's our best course of action. But we're gonna have to follow the guidelines, see where we're at. I think the best way to, if people, the county is looking at positivity numbers, and right now, really, I haven't been tested. I don't feel I need to be tested, but I should get tested, because the more people who go out and get tested and don't have it, that positivity rate comes down. And that positivity rate is the one that they're looking at. I don't think it's a correct number to look at for this, but that's what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So, and those people who are healthy and don't feel they need to be tested aren't getting tested. But if more people in the community went out and got tested that are healthy, that positivity rate would come down, and it would change what opening phase that we're in.
Kind of goes to coincide with the temperature checks kind of thing. I mean, it would,
Yeah.
you know, that would coincide with it. I mean, it's not the end all be all, but it.
Well, for my work, before I go to work, I have to have my temperature checked, and before I leave, I have to have a check, so.
I understand, and there's a stickler with that too. I mean, you know, you don't want to infringe upon student rights,
Right.
you know, and all of that, and certainly make anybody insecure on that day getting off the bus. And there's a time constraint to that. I mean,
And I think that
we
might
only
be
have-
for some, for principals to
Yeah.
look at for their individual
Yeah.
schools and with their parents.
and we only have one of those touchless temperatures per building. So I
Yeah,
mean,
they're
we
really
have,
hard to find right now.
when we have 450 students, it's gonna take some time to do those.
Yeah.
So we get it. I mean, we're not just saying
Yeah.
draw the line. You know, we understand.
And I don't think there's a right answer on either side, I really don't.
Right.
I think we're all gonna kind of hopefully work together, hopefully kind of
Yep.
weather the storm.
Yep, and that's why I'm here. I just wanted to share with you, you know.
But we
what-
do
where we're-
appreciate all the input, because the more information we have, the more educated we are, I think the more educated decision we can make.
Sure.
That's just my opinion, so.
And you definitely make a valid point about the prep time, because you're right, even in a weekly setting, your your class is fluid. Your lesson changes based on the results that you get. So, bunching prep into one day for the whole week does seem, you make some valid points. And definitely everything changes on it seems like an hourly basis, but for sure, a day-to-day basis, and definitely a week-to-week basis. So it feels like, like everything is in stone, but it isn't, because everything's changing. And 3 weeks is like an eternity right now, or 4 weeks, or wherever we're at, but,
Yeah, and we did present that to our members on this survey. We took it as, like you guys did, if we had to vote today, where would we be at? And so that's where this survey's coming from. It's not, our members understand that it's changing daily. But I thought it was also good information.
when did this survey go out?
Last Tuesday,
Okay.
Tuesday evening. Yeah. So then I gave them till Friday to do it. And like I said, we got all but one member that didn't. I gotta find that member somehow.
Did they also partake in the survey that the district sent out that Dr. Meyer presented to the board?
I know many of them did. I know there was a question that deterred a lot of people with this, because there was nothing said about preps in there. And so people were really hesitant to pick one way or the other.
Sure.
Until we can figure out what the preps were. So, but I know she did get quite a few of those.
So did they see the results? Were they privy to the results of those surveys?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
in the board presentation, which was attached to the
Yeah.
website, and I told them in district communication.
Okay, I guess my one thing I would want them to understand is that there's a clear divide here. We're simply a governing board based on the law, and we write policy and implement policy. That's all we do. Dr. Meyer presented us with a lot of data. 44% of the teachers said that yes, they would if it meant that the school, the requirement to wear a mask, they would do it to return to school. On the other side, 39% of the parents said, no, my child will not wear a mask. So here's my question. How do we appease both without one making feel that they're violated over the other? So therefore the board thought, well, okay, so we won't require, we'll recommend the 44% that feel like they need to wear it. And the board also said, hey, you need a sneeze guard, you need a plexiglass, whatever, no problem. Negotiated agreement that prohibits them from teaching online if they feel unsafe for coming to school in the way that we open?
Well, that is an option. We talked about that today in our meeting as well, that there's going to be definitely some positions open online, depending on how many we get. But like you, we won't know until our students get here how many we get,
Right.
how many teachers that is. I do know that we have a targeted local group through our union that's been set up the last 2 years. And it's basically a group that is basically promoting membership. They work closely with the Idaho Education Association, closely with them, and then they work with me and all of our members and try to get more people. And they sent out, IEA recommended that they sent out a survey based on coming back as if we were to open up right now. And there were some questions in there that, how many of you, if we had to open currently under this yellow phase, how many of you are planning on coming back? There's a total of 32 people, and they were told before the survey, don't just, you got to answer this honestly. Don't just answer it for the sake of getting a number up there. Do you have any pre-existing conditions? And so there were like 9 people that said they had that. Are you thinking about early retirement? There were 5 people that said that. Other people, are you just scared or looking for another job where you could go feel more comfortable? And that was the biggest one at 23. But 32 of our staff are that concerned about coming back that, you know, they're taking alternative measures.
Sure. So Jason, am I clear to understand that the safety concern is temperature checks and masks on children? Those are the 2 critical
And
components.
social distancing. If we come back in the yellow,
Right.
I don't think our teachers feel that they can adequately be safe throughout the day with social distancing.
Okay,
given the number of students in
I
the
don't
class.
recall any of those questions specific to social distancing.
No, it's in the comments. You'll see them in
I respect the comments. I was just talking about the survey pointed
Yeah,
out
that
specifically it's
wasn't-
temperature checks and masks on children.
Yeah, from that survey, yeah.
Okay.
And they know that the 6 foot is between person, not desk.
Yeah, head to head. I learned that last week,
Yep.
so, yeah.
Okay, because we have a utility or something, I know early on we talked about
The room
that
calculator?
took, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Brian has actually, Mr. Wallace is actually going, or went up this afternoon. And Mr. Everlin at Timberlake High School has shown us videos, and he's worked with Timberlake High School and put it out and seen how many, if you move the teacher desk out, and so he's been experimenting at the secondary level. And Mr. Wallace was going up tomorrow to look at that, also to help with the custodian. So we're working on that in all the different classrooms.
Okay. I have just a couple more points. I won't keep everybody too long. But also that in the spring, we got the board, correct me if I'm wrong, sort of got, you know, lambasted out of the blue with this whole shutdown, and nobody got to make a decision on anything. And the board, along with lots of other people, were sort of upset about that. The state, the governor, and Panhandle Health reassured us that the boards would be able to take everything that they do as a recommendation of what should be done. It's not written in stone, that it would be totally up to the board to decide what was best for our community and our district. So the board this time made sure that we did that. And Panhandle Health themselves has said, as far as the information they give us is recommendation. I know what Dr. Meyer brought to us was compiled from many meetings with all superintendents in the district, along with Panhandle Health. So I want the staff to understand, or the teachers who participated in the survey, because it's only a minuscule amount of the staff,
Well, it's
They-
2/3 of your teaching staff.
yeah, out of 700 staff
Right.
members and 400 teachers, so it's about half of the teachers employed in the district, almost. That we did consider all those things, and I just feel like there was a lot of work that went into that, and that the board did take all those things into consideration. Like you said, it's a hard position to be right now for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I can sympathize with that. One of the comments you'll see in there is, to me, I should have been doing more. We should have been doing this back in March. In March, I was just trying to tread water, trying to learn how to teach online, and the district, I'm sure they were feeling the same way. So, those are kind of harsh statements, but in reality, it's like, oh yeah, maybe we should have maybe had some meetings about that, but I think you can only do what you can do.
Right,
and,
right.
As long as you're taking a step in the right direction, and we're doing it wholeheartedly, then that's all you can ask,
Right, our main focus being the students, right? And
Exactly.
providing the best
Exactly.
education and the best environment.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And safety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So what's happening?
Well, I think Dr. Meyer is actually going to do her presentation next, because I think it might address
Yeah, it
some
kind of
of
mirrors
the,
some of the.
yeah, so I think it's gonna flow better. She
Okay.
was
Yeah.
thinking
And-
that.
Mine was just one question after what we talked about and after some questions by the board. So I just wanted to,
Thank you guys.
Thank you
Jason.
very much. We appreciate the input.
You should come more often.
Yeah, I plan to.
After Jason had talked about this, and then other people had questions about the 4-day versus the 5-day. The intention of the 4 days was two intentions. One was that we thought it would be better for staff to be able to have a set amount of time instead of trying to piece together capacity building, professional development, training on how to do blended learning and working together. They often feel rushed. You can ask any teacher, and during the day, trying to have a half an hour prep to get ready is difficult. There's that side of it. Then there's also the other side Jason talked about with, it's nice to be able to have a little bit every day to plan. So there's both sides of the coin on that one. But the other piece is we were also thinking between yellow and orange, if we could be, and you know, there was some parent comments in that initial survey saying, if we had the ability to plan for the whole year, because some parents going from 5-day, then all of a sudden when orange, we go to 4-day, and they have to find childcare for Monday. So honestly, I'm not attached to the outcome on this, like whatever's best for everybody involved. I know it's the board's decision. I want to do what's best to actually help our students. Like this is the number one thing I want to come back to is what's best for our students. Well, supporting our staff is what's best for students because they are in there on the ground, boots on the ground with our staff, with our students every day, but also the community is the one that supports our school district with the taxes, passing the levies. They are all our customers. So we have to, you make a good point, Trustee Grissom, like we have definite sides of the coin and it seems to be a 3 or 4-sided coin right now that we're trying to please. So I definitely don't have the answers. I just wanted to provide you with some information. So after I had feedback from other people saying, hey, I don't know if this 4-day thing is really what's going to be best for parents or best for staff. I said, certainly let's get, if we're in yellow, which at the time when we talked about this, the last board meeting, we were currently, I had talked to Panhandle Health that morning and we were in yellow. Now today we're in orange. So again, it may change again, like you all said, but if we were in yellow and we were to start, would you rather have, and this is, Jason said about opposite of theirs, but I believe if you look here, you can see that in option 1 of going 4 days, there was 46%. Going 5 days was 53%. Jason, did you say that was about opposite of yours?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Flip. But the other thing to the caveat is we're looking at, I asked classified and certified. So I asked the entire group what that would be. And so you can see that there's certified and classified, and there's a lot of classified staff that are in the classroom daily with the certified teachers. So I feel like everyone's opinion matters in my,
Yes,
so,
yes, it does.
so I just wanted to, and we had 431, we actually had 433 responses. It looks like only 430, but 433 people responded. Do we have the exact number?
I showed 434.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, sorry, 434. We're trying to get the exact, we always say it's 700 staff, but I don't want to misspeak. I wanted to get the exact number.
So far, 246 certified staff, not including admins.
Okay, so
That's all I have.
That's closer to 280.
yeah, 282
We're
is
right
the,
around 280.
the brains of the operation. The sexton told me that it was 282. And so, and then we have about that, usually that amount of classified staff, and then we have guest teachers that are.
The 280 or the 282 is teachers and counselors, PP staff.
Thank you.
Nurses doesn't, right, and the other certified staff, of course, are principals, they're not included in that.
So 282 would be the instructional people that are working with students, the SLPs, the school nurses, counselors, all that. 282 would be that number, and then the classified is usually about that same amount, and then we have guest teachers on top of that. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't give them the wrong number as the
A few
total.
street coaches and.
Yeah, street
like
coaches and stuff. So if we look at our total, like payroll type of thing, is what I was referring to. So that's really all I was presenting. I wanted you to know in follow-up, and I certainly can ask any additional questions as the board discusses, just like I'm sure that Jason would as well, to ask the entire staff. I just want to both the two surrounding districts, and the reason that's important, not because we're comparing to the two districts, but we all share K-Tech. So I just want to remind the board that if two of the districts are doing something, approaching anything, then the K-Tech will go with that. So if two districts are mandating masks, then that's what K-Tech will go with. I just wanted to remind you that we all three share K-Tech. And the two surrounding district current plans are to go with the mask mandate. And according to what the Panhandle Health District and the Coeur d'Alene has had discussion about starting later for students, as Jason talked about. And so far as today, Post Falls says they haven't, but they have a board meeting next week. So that's just some discussion with the superintendent.
I misspoke, it's 439, not 434. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, 439. So I did the screenshot earlier before, so we can have that.
I've got it right here.
Thank you for clarifying. I don't want to give misinformation. So.
Me either.
I know it's not a lot tonight. I just know there's a lot going on, and that I just want to keep up to date. But in follow up, if you want me to do any further, follow up with staff, I'm happy to do that. So I just want us to be what's best for students and the heart of what we're doing. So thank you, everyone.
Dr. Meyer, what is our tentative open date right now? September 8th?
So, yeah, it's the day after
Labor
Day,
okay.
And that's our date. And the staff comes back on the 31st, which is the prior Monday. The staff, when Jason was talking about the 4 days, the 4 days the staff comes back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Certified teachers have that Friday as a non-contract day. Classified and admin do work that Friday, but they have 4 days. We have taken away district trainings that we normally have. Ms. Sexton and I always do the protege for a large portion of Monday. We took that away. We do a welcome back at Lakeland High School Commons. I'm only going to do a short welcome back electronically. So we have been trying to make some adjustments that way. But and we have been offering also, I don't know if I've updated you, we started a Tech Live at 9 every Tuesday and Thursdays in voluntary optional for all staff that Michelle Stanford, who you've met, and she's done the presentation for you. She's doing, I asked her to start preparing staff for those who want to start preparing, talking about blended learning, Google Classroom, how do you live stream lessons, how do you record lessons, if you have a lapel mic, how do you turn it on and off, best practices, which again, I'll remind you, her master's is in that, and she's had a lot of experience in that. So she's now doing a Tech Live at 9, which we did at the end of last year. When we were in the emergency, all of a sudden we're in there, and she started, I mean, she's amazing. Anybody would tell you that she is providing this, and then question and answer, she records it all, so if people can't watch it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she's doing a beginning level, and that came from the staff survey that I did. What level, what's your comfort? She's doing a beginning, and then she's building on that and doing it on Thursday and making advanced training. She also is creating a library so that afterwards, if you can't make it and watch it, the staff can go back and do that. So she's building a huge training library to try to help better prepare our staff. She's also going to make trainings available that first week back if teachers are out of town or something, or they're on vacation and they can't access it now. When they come back for that first week, that they would have that ability. She's going to do some training then as well.
So are you eliminating right now the communal engagements with the staff, or are you trying to find alternative ways to do it, or are you doing both?
Doing both.
Okay.
And I'm really trying to do what people feel comfortable with. Some people really aren't comfortable with being in person. Trustee Grissom asked, is there anything in the negotiated agreement about not teaching from home? I think we would have to really look at that because it creates, and I know you've got emails as well because they've CC'd me from parents of like, why are we not going 5 days? Because for them, childcare is an issue. If I'm, and for parents and for staff, also for our staff members who are parents, that's a reality that we've all lived through in our day. And I think it's an important thing to keep in mind. So if a staff that person, I don't think we can just allow the whole entire staff to say, well, you get to choose whether you teach from home or not. But one thing that we are doing, and we have a principals meeting tomorrow, is they've talked to staff, and the staff have asked all their staff members, and Jason alluded to this, like, what are you vulnerable? Are you medically, are there things that you're concerned about? And we are starting at the building level on staff who would feel more comfortable. Some have reached out to Ms. Sexton and I, some have reached out to their principals, and we're gonna start to look at that. And then we're gonna have an application for Lakeland Online Academy. So we start to see what are our numbers for Lakeland Online Academy to see where we're at. Because I think from the initial staff survey, we could be at a different place right now. Right. So there's a lot going on, and we're willing to adjust as we go on the fly, but we want to do really what's best for as many people as possible. So if the board, after your discussion, if you want me to follow up with anything else, I'm certainly happy to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
But I'm gonna have to leave. Changing job responsibilities.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Wallace?
So is this, where did it go there? You did it.
Magic work. All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Meyer, I think the plans report will be very short for this month, and one of the reasons is there's not a whole lot going on paper anyway, financially in July. You'll see that if you just look at our overall revenues, we've only recorded $7,400 of revenues, and our expenditures, which are generally much more than $600,000 a month, that was the only dollars really recorded in a month. The reason that is much of our salaries that went out in payroll are really charged back to June. They're accrued back. And so there's really, on the finance report for July and August, there's not a whole lot of information to present to really get a feel of how we're tracking and how budget's going. This report does reflect in the budget numbers on the left our estimated starting fund balance of $5.3 million. When after our audit and we get a real number, then I'll have where we actually ended with the year there. We just don't have that. So a lot of the accruals that are going right now, and some of that year-end accounting, we're working with our auditors right now. Doing some work here. Our auditors are out of Moscow. They do work there, but they do come up they're here for a couple days earlier this summer. But for the major parts of the audit, they come up in early September, where we finalize things, and then they'll have a report for you in the first board meeting of October, which just gets us underneath the timeline. We have to have all that information to the state by October 28th. So the timeline's sort of short, really, to close out the year, but that's what was given us by code. So, unless there's questions, I don't want to go too long. I think really, as we go through, this is going to be a really challenging year. Financially, we don't know. Attendance is going to be interesting. We'll see how online happens. We can get waivers from the state if needed, and how COVID goes. Our expenditures definitely for PPE and some of those other things we are going to be higher. We're already seeing some of that for disinfecting and things. So it's definitely going to be a challenging year, but we do have some of the CARES money. It's often I can go by other years that if we're tracking similarly to previous years that things look okay. I don't think that's going to happen this year, but we're starting the year in good financial shape, and I think that can help us weather any storm. And then, of course, we just have the charts that don't show a whole lot of red going on yet. And just by object and function, but I'm available for any questions. We'll have more information really when September, October hit is really when we start getting more, we know how our staffing dollars are tracking and what our attendance is looking like and to see if we're tracking to our estimates.
I'm fine.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, this is report. We're gonna go on to the action items. Can we do the consent agenda as a block, or do we need to break it out?
You need to break it out, please.
Okay. So let's start with the minutes of the previous meeting.
I noticed that there was nothing in here about the conversation we had for discussion items. Brian, or Mr. Wallace spoke about the facility use and addressing that, and there's nothing on the minutes with regard to that. Yes,
Discussion?
yes.
Oh, okay,
So I just would like to,
yeah.
if we could update that. That was pretty much the only thing I noticed on there.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting with, how do you want to word that with the changes?
With recommended changes?
Or amendments.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the previous meeting, the official board meeting minutes, July 28th, 2020, with the recommended amendments.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next are the HR items.
You didn't approve the executive session.
Oh, I just assumed it was underneath that. Do we need to break that
That
out?
was our one item, yeah.
Okay, well, it wasn't in her motion, is what
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
stating.
Yeah,
That's okay.
Are we good with a motion for all, and then we'll have a restate? Or for both items?
I'm fine with that, I just was playing it out.
So I'll make a motion that we also add to that approval, the executive session meeting minutes for July 28th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion and second. Everyone can say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay. So now on HR items. Is there any question on that? Can I have a motion to approve the HR items as presented?
I just have a quick question.
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Meyer, the guest teachers that are now listed, are these in addition to what was listed previously, or are these the same? Okay.
Yep, there'll just be every time the new ones that are added.
Okay,
And again, we're trying to
build that base.
build it. Yes, yes, exactly.
Build the plot. Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the HR items as presented.
I'll second that. Have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next are regular and special bills. Is there any discussion on those?
I did have a question. Sorry. There was an expense for BMO that I thought was a bit large, given that our school was shut down. So I was curious about that.
Many of those, the BMO have been going to Amazon, and a lot of that's been for PPE.
Okay.
For disinfectant, for some of the plexiglass, it's cleaning materials, also for technology. Like I think that's where technology got. I have to remember, I mean, it's chargers for remote learning for Chromebooks. It's like $40,000. I mean, we're definitely starting to use the CARES money.
Okay, yeah, it was $14,648.70 to BMO. So
Or on that, yeah, a lot of that, I could get more information, but a lot of that's been PPE and.
PPE. Okay. And then I was curious about the overtime that was listed on here for Heritage Health. I didn't understand why there would be overtime if we were closed. Let's see here.
I can.
Oh, no, that's not overtime. I believe that's an occupational therapist.
Okay.
And it would have been an invoice from June.
Well,
that
there we
got
go,
paid.
OT.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, the
OT is overtime, I wouldn't
Correct.
think that, so,
Right,
all
the
right.
invoice would have come from June and we didn't pay it off.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
I'm gonna really have to look into that.
Just keeping you on your toes,
Yes.
you know, these acronyms, I'm still learning the lingo.
I need to put that down in the list that I have for the board of the acronyms.
Thank you.
OTPD.
There we go. Those were my questions, thank you.
So can I have a motion to approve the regular and special bills?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular and special bills.
I'll second that.
A motion is second, everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Under the action items, so the first one is to approve the update to policy 2700, the high school graduation requirements. I don't think anybody submitted any other corrections. So this, we had our first read at the last board meeting, so I need a motion to approve the update to policy 2700.
I'll make a motion to approve the update to policy 2700, high school graduation requirements.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next was the update to policy 1110, elections. Again, I didn't hear of any changes to that, so can I have a motion to approve the update to policy 1110, elections?
I'll make a motion to approve the update to policy 1110, elections.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second, everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next is to approve or deny facility use option for 2020, 2021 school year. I always have to that. So I think Brian can speak to that. This was this last.
Do we have it up there or do I just scroll?
So, yeah, you'll have to click on board book,
Oh,
one more over, few over, right?
This one?
Second to last.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I just like logging on.
Here, I can read. Log us back in.
Okay. I think we'll just wait here.
You can stare at her when she comes out.
There you go.
Trustee
It's all good, it's been a long
Yes.
day.
I know at the last board meeting, there was a question about down the baseball field, there was a question about the Washington.
Yes.
Arms down there.
Yes.
That was actually our Legion, our American Legion tournament
Okay,
that we do, and those are scheduled every year. We schedule those every January.
okay.
So I think it just so happened that, yeah, we always do it with those tournaments. We get people all over the Northwest. And so there's Washington, Oregon, Montana teams, as well as Idaho teams as well. So I think, when people were driving by and saw a bunch of Washington guards, it just so happened that there's probably a Washington team playing on that. But that was our own.
It was all Washington teams because there were 2 Idaho plates, the rest were all Washington, so. But thank you, I appreciate that.
So this is a follow-up actually to the facility use conversation last board meeting, where you asked to maybe come in with some options on how we might address facility use during the different stages. So I just sort of came up with option 1, 2, 3, 4. We could come up with other ideas. We could combine ideas, but just to think about some of the issue and just so maybe we're consistent with groups who ask to use our facilities throughout the school year. So for option 1, I just said, if we're in green, yellow, orange, we'll just do regular facility use procedures, but in red, For all options, I recommend that we're really closing our facilities down to our program. I don't think you could override me, of course, but I'm not sure how we do facility use when we're not here. It makes it difficult for if we're in red. Option 2 would be, maybe if we're in orange, do we use regular procedures, but maybe only use outside facilities and not indoor? Just an idea. I looked at what some other districts are doing. Some are doing that. Another option would be to follow regular facility use procedures, but for athletic events, would we mirror the restrictions that Lakeland High School and Timberlake High School might be in if, depending on what happens with the season. So would we, if we're not allowing our kids to play basketball, are we going to let an AAU team come in and play basketball?
Right.
I mean, but also with that said, would we have an exception for our Park and Recreation department? So with Grafton Park and Rec and Spirit Lake Park and Rec, would we still allow them, which is mostly elementary kids? I mean, as an exception, because they're sort of our community partner. But we could say, no, basketball is just not a good time right now. So that was just another idea. And then, of course, option 4 is sort of really 3, except that if it gets into orange, you'd limit to outside facilities, so you're not going to have any indoor and near the same thing. So those are just some ideas on thoughts. I just want to have the board input and let us know on where you'd like us to go with those requests as they come in. And we just want to be fair to all the groups so that they can go in. And honestly, most groups as they come in, especially when it comes to gym season, there's not a whole lot of opportunity to use gyms. Because first, we have varsity, junior varsity, boys, girls, they book the gyms. Then we give priority to the Park and Rec departments. And then after that, there's a few days, the Mountain View Gym and some others that we let maybe some select teams, AAU teams and things use it, those gyms if they get in a spot. So the biggest impact, honestly, when we get to gym time is the Park and Rec departments. And there are some select teams, but that's, onesie, twosies generally. And the outdoor facilities, obviously there's less risk being outdoor, but we do have, junior tackle, they're practicing out there right now. And of course, high school football right now, as far as I know, is a go, but, how are we going to handle that dynamic if the high school football season's closed? We still have junior tackle going for our junior high kids and elementary kids. So with that, I guess I'll leave it for a discussion and get your thoughts, and hopefully you can, we don't have to go with any of these options. We can tweak it and change it today, but I would like to have something we can move forward with. Yeah.
Were you going to say something? Okay, I thought I heard you, and then
I just said direction. I was finishing his.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, sorry. It was
no, that's
under
okay.
my breath. Sorry.
And I don't have keen ears, so that's interesting. With regard to, it says follow regular facility use procedures. We've never, excuse me, I won't speak for everybody. I've never seen those. So I don't know what that is.
I can forward you the procedures and
Okay.
reflects policy. Yeah. I mean, generally we have 4 categories of use.
Okay.
Category 1, 2, 3, and 4. Category 1 is park and recs and groups that are our kids for athletics, serving our kids, pretty much. Then you can get category 4 is the highest. That's like commercial groups for someone who's going for a profit, and churches. Category 2, I can't remember. They're like you're serving kids, but you're not exactly associated with like Boys and Girls Club or Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, things like that.
Okay.
And we have different charges. Really, the only dollars we really get is when we get down to the category 3 and 4 groups that we charge, but we don't charge the the city of Raptor and the city of Spirit Lake. Or junior tackle or if there's an AAU team that our athletic directors decided if it was a team that had like 75% of our kids, and we'll check rosters.
Right.
That it's sort of supporting our feeder programs and helping out our athletic programs, so we don't charge. And that most of the groups that do use our fields really fall into that category. Or generally, but I'll forward that to you later today.
Yeah, just the only reason I'm asking is we're asking to modify something that we don't know what it really looks like. So.
Right, so I guess I'm saying is that regardless of the category and things like that, so regular use is that we're gonna just, us to follow our current policy and procedures until it's read. Or would we limit some of that and say, no, we're gonna limit some of these groups being able to come in because of COVID? I guess that's
I
really
think
the
that would
conversation.
be a wise thing to, I mean, if our students are limited, why wouldn't people be limited to work?
Right, and so I guess my question is when, do we limit it yellow, do we limit it orange, do we limit it red?
I think option 3 looks pretty good, but I'm open for discussion.
I like option 3 because we are in a winter climate. And we limit them to outside facilities only. It's a basketball that get quite chilly.
Right.
So like, if we're playing basketball, they want somebody that they can't use it.
So and would we do it by
Still follow the same.
sort of the same thing? And so if the high school basketball season was suspended, would we also suspend park and rec basketball season for the elementary kids?
I would say yes.
I think
Yeah.
it's only fair.
Yeah, I mean,
If our kids can't play.
All right.
yeah, if everything's limited.
And I think a lot of that makes sense, but I certainly want to be able to give, you know,
And they can
the
always,
groups the heads up that this is a possibility. It's not
because they
for
can
sure.
always look at, like, you know, other parks or something like that, you know, if they need to, but if our own kids can't use it, I don't see how it's fair to allow other people to come in.
Would there be, aside from an uproar, but a complication? I am concerned about like our football program, whether it's even going to happen, because I know the NCAA has said no for this year, not through December. So I'm concerned that the State Board of Education might jump on board with that for our local programs. If we have to tell the tackle football team, well, now get off our fields because no one can use them, is there any repercussion for us breaking that contract with them or that agreement?
Well, I mean, they're not paying us any dollars
guess-
in a sense. They do some work on the field. They've done some work and they're a good
Okay.
partner. I mean, they're a good group for sure. And they help with our football program because they try to coordinate with the coaches. I mean, they're a good group.
Okay.
Well,
Well, and I don't think anybody is a bad group.
but I mean, there are some groups that can be not fun. I can tell you that. My group, they're pretty solid. So that's really nice to see. But you know, with that said, I mean, if we go, I'm just letting you know that you would hear from them, and they may not be happy.
Okay,
Just
got it.
yeah, but we can definitely give them the heads up and say this is sort of
Okay.
where we are, and yeah, and
So
they could be vocal.
Okay.
from your point of view, are we being unreasonable to do option 3? I just want your opinion. I'm just looking for your insight.
No, I don't think it's unreasonable. I think other people may have a different opinion.
Mhm.
I think that challenge is if we got to that certain level where it's in the community and we're saying, well, we need to, let's say we were in Orange and we're only having our kids going every other day and trying to social distance, and then all our 7th graders show up on the football field and play. I mean, I shouldn't say all our 7th graders, but you know, quite a few participate. I mean, I think,
I don't like that.
right, I mean, it's sort of tough, and it's sort of hard for that group because they've been working hard, the kids want to play,
Right.
it's a good program, and it sort of kills me, but I know it's just like, there's like no right answer almost.
It's hard.
Right.
It's a tough one. Because you don't want to take everything away. I mean, gosh, they can't even, attend school on a regular basis. Now you're going to take away all their,
When we were able to do, when
Extracurricular
things
and-
lightened up in June, we were able to allow American Legion back on the fields, and that was a good day. God, yeah, back to normal a little bit, and kids are playing
Yes.
ball.
yes.
So that was, I would definitely prefer not to, but
That's kind of what.
I mean,
my
but
heart
I
was
think
going.
if are we sending mixed signals if we're
Yes.
really shutting down our academic and day program, but right after school?
Everybody's playing.
Right.
I think option 3 is the right one, although it's hard. It is hard. I really don't want to do that because I want these kids to be able to have an outlet. I mean, this is hard on these kids. I mean, it's anyway.
So the mirroring LHS and THS athletic, I don't know if anymore if the gyms at the elementary schools are used also for other activities or?
Correct, they're used for like park and rec practice. So I would, really go with Spirit Lake and Athol, we sort of associate with where Timberlake is with.
Okay.
And I'm guessing with, IHSA, I don't know how that's gonna flush out. From what I've seen is that it's possible that, some schools may be active while other schools aren't active. So it's possible maybe Timberlake is still doing a certain activity and Lakeland High School isn't. And so we might let Spirit Lake Park and Rec and those gyms will be willing to wrap Park and Rec.
Are we familiar with what our cities are doing with regard to their youth programs that they typically offer now?
Yeah, they've already, for like basketball, they've already booked gyms.
Okay.
I mean, in the future, and we give them a special account so they can go in because they do so much of it and approve it. So we try to get them on the calendar first so other people they see that's not available. So, we definitely talked with Eric Singer of Park and Rec and Rathdrum and counterpart in Spirit Lake saying that it's a go right now, but it's a fluid situation and we'd give you as much heads up as we could if things change. And very possible, Eric has had conversations with families who have signed up that it's a possibility too. I mean, I'm not sure what standards they have on when they would pull the plug on a program. I'm not sure what their protocols exactly are. They've given us protocols on how they're social distancing and cleaning things with their coaches and how they're running that.
Okay.
Who makes the decision at LHS and THS at Timberlake High School and Lakeland High School? Who's making that decision on what those activity stages are? It says mirror them, but who's deciding that?
I was thinking the Idaho High School Athletic Association. So if IHSAA says basketball season's over, then we mirror that. So it's coming from that association, not necessarily Lakeland High School.
Not our community.
They have draft plans, both of them, the principals and ADs at both comprehensive high schools are working on draft plans right now that they've shared out. They're getting parent input, coach input, they're getting input on it right now based on the IHSAA at the state level.
So those would be the plans that we would probably follow then, as far as this mirroring would be a local plan.
Yeah, and
not a
I'll
state
share it with
plan.
you once they have that input piece, and then I'll share it with the board after that.
Okay. I think we just need to be a little bit more specific of who's making the decision. And that, someone in Boise isn't deciding what's happening in Rathdrum.
I know on that committee, the IHSAA, there's regional people up here.
Right.
That go down, they're on that board, and so they speaking for baseball last year, because our season ended up getting canceled, but Boise's was canceled way before ours was, and so, they allowed us to try, and then they ended up just bagging it.
Yeah. I would feel more comfortable with that as long as we put some kind of language in there that, states that it would be local decision through these plans, based on these plans that Dr. Meyer's referring to. So that we,
Well, I think that's probably why he put the late LHS and THS athletic activity stages. And he broke down the schools, because like he said, Timberlake could be different than Lakeland, so it does give that local control to each of those schools.
Yeah, I believe when the athletic director and the principal, if they make that call that they can't participate in the season, is going to be based on the standards set forth that all high schools are following, just knowing that a school in Pocatello could be in a different position than up in North Idaho.
So are you comfortable voting for an option, or do we need to table this?
I'd like to table it till the next board meeting, please.
So can we
I'll second that.
wordsmith it a little bit and
Well,
try to add a little more specificity?
yeah, I mean,
Is that what we're asking for on that?
yeah, I could, we could certainly.
Do we have disagreement on option 3, or
Yeah, I have no problem with 3. I think 3 is good.
just more specificity on option 3?
Yeah, well, and
Is
I
that what we're
think
looking at?
Trustee Thompson, I think, she was asking about the facility use procedures. Is that one of
Yeah.
your those procedures are before okaying it?
So it seems
And I'll
like,
forward that all to the board. That's just a PDF.
Yeah.
Perfect.
looks like there's a consensus on option 3, just maybe a
Yeah.
little more specificity with option 3. Is that?
Right, yeah, I mean, I think, we haven't started school yet, so
Sure.
we're still letting groups come in and a few go, so that's, I think it'll work, and we'll definitely, when I talk to like the Park and Recs, I'll give them head of this is sort of a direction that we're leading, and it's a possibility just so that they, we just don't like people to be surprised.
Sure.
As
Yeah,
much notice as
absolutely.
we can give them, the better,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
So I need a
Thank
motion to table.
I put table this action item until trustees are providing clarification on facility use procedures and specificity on option 3. Does that work?
So we don't need a motion.
Let's. Motion second.
So everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you guys.
Thank you for your work on that. Okay, next is, again, transportation routes. Great.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Meyer. So I have Susie Moore, our transportation director here, in case you have any questions. This is sort of a housekeeping item required by our policy, which mirrors Idaho code, where the board approves the transportation routes each year. And so in your packet is the routes that the transportation department has generated. Actually, this year they generated with a new software system we've been using. So trying to streamline our operations. And the routes are fairly similar to last year's. There hasn't been a whole lot of changes. There have been some, but just, this is sort of a standard item that we have every July or August. And Director Moore is here to.
Is this easier to follow? This seems better.
Oh, than previous, than using Excel? Yeah, before they were doing it by hand.
This is, yes, this is good.
So, but if you have any questions about the process or the routes, we're here to answer. I know there's a lot in the packet, but there's
It's a lot of routes.
Yeah, it's a lot of routes.
I just imagine that this will be changing also because we really don't know where we're at, so.
Yeah.
One thing I did question though, is there any, if future looking, forward looking, is there any thought about consolidating? If there are multiple 5, 6, 7 stops on a stretch, but there might be a large area where 3 or 4, 5 stops can gather and be a single stop. If there was
And we try to start with that, but then parents are in fear. A lot of our county roads and highways are high speed. They're 50 miles an hour. Ramsey, well, of course, the highways are higher speed, but even a lot of our back roads are at a high rate of speed. And then you get winter come into play. They have no room to walk. It's all snow, so they're out in the middle of the road in a lot of cases because it's ditch.
That's dangerous.
And so, and the parents are not happy if they can't get it close. There is a requirement that they have to be so many feet apart. So we have the ability to activate the yellows and the reds and make sure the protocol from the state is in place. So we don't let it get too close, and we try our hardest to.
Right, I'm sure you do.
But sometimes, yeah.
Yep, I'm sure you do. It's
Yeah,
that's
because
a
yeah,
lot.
every stop is time consuming, and probably more fuel, but.
Yeah.
We're a service industry, so.
Sure.
And some of the stops, you know, some may seem like close enough, but you almost have to, often if we get a parent concern, we'll go drive there and really see, well, how is this kid's walking? Is there any option? Sometimes they do live out in the Tules, and some of it is what it is sometimes.
Right.
But we do try to accommodate to what we can, but also there's time involved too. If we have too many stops, it takes longer. And we don't want rides to be over an hour. And we do have some that stretch there that, going out to Hauser Lake or, come up north, some of the longer routes. So it definitely is sort of
Curious. Looking at it. I don't have any more questions.
We appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you for all
Yes.
you've done.
You're welcome.
That's a lot of work.
It's a huge undertaking, and you do a fabulous job. Motion to approve the bus routes for the 2020-2021 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve the bus routes for 2020-2021 school year.
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
All right.
You go, girl. Make a break for it.
Not careful. Okay, next is to approve or deny the request for certified employees 08/11/2020 A to be released from their 2020-2021.
So, just wanted to say, I kind of mentioned this to the board at the last meeting, and this employee was considering retirement and decided to resign. So I'm supporting this decision for this employee, and I like the board's recommendation. I'd like to recommend that we let this employee out of the contract for this year. And I feel like we don't know what our enrollment's gonna be. We don't know how many are gonna be online, how many until we get closer. So I feel like staffing wise will still be okay and be able to fulfill this position if need be.
We may see more of these concerns with the COVID, especially with our older teachers getting close to retirement. Might be a better option. Or a option. So do I have a motion to approve the request for certified employee 08/11/2020 age release from the 2020-2021 contract? Okay, I will make a motion to approve the request for certified employee 08/11/2020 age release from their 2020-2021 contract. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I do not remember, forgive me, Dr. Meyer, this discussion.
We were just talking about being caring and compassionate with employees who may feel that they're not comfortable working in the COVID environment and decide to maybe not continue in this profession, or to retire, or to go into an
Draft proposal, and I said that we quite possibly may have people that come forward. Typically, the precedent had been for the last years before I started here, and Ms. Sexton could even refer this, that they always say in the board, pending finding a suitable replacement is what typically the motion has, because the board, at least since I've been here, and Ms. Sexton could speak to before I got here, or Mr. Wallace could, but in this case, I did not have Chrissy put on the pending a suitable replacement, because at this point, we really don't know what our enrollment, based on feedback. And online, if you're teaching an online program, your caseload is actually bigger than if you're in person. So the staffing may look different, and I don't want to assume that we're gonna need to replace this position. Right now, we're covered at this school and we're adequate right now. If we need to, we can add staffing. Again, I talked to the board about that with the staffing plan, but I feel like in this case, I would really recommend that the board support this teacher in wanting to retire early.
Sure.
1 year early. I just feel like it's the right thing to do for this employee. And that's the part I'm asking for the board needs to vote on that, because it's a board decision whether to let a teacher out of their contract after they've signed it.
Right.
The precedent, I'm just letting you know that the board has done that if there was a suitable replacement, but that's the difference right now in our situation.
Okay.
Will this employee be doing an exit interview?
They're good. I should say they wrote a letter, which the board would see in Brooke's report that she's going to do for the board when I've been discussing, because you've brought it up every single meeting. So I have Brooke's putting together a report that she will present so that no names are attached in presenting the information.
Correct.
That letter would be in there, and then certainly the employee would have a chance. Brooke sends every employee the opportunity, and she's redone it again to make sure every employee's had the opportunity to do the exit questions.
Okay.
Oh, I have no problem honoring the employee's request. I just feel like I don't have enough information on this particular. I'm so used to the executive session.
Right.
To, go over it so we have a little bit more. I'm just really uncomfortable.
Well, we can certainly, Madam Chair, we could certainly table it until the next meeting if they're for an executive session, because there's not one today. I think so, because it's not like it's not like we're getting out of the contract to go to another position. I mean, I don't have, it's whatever the board's.
So basically the motion's gonna die.
It sounds like HR director would like to speak.
Okay.
Sorry, maybe I don't have all the information. I thought I did, but she knows more than I do.
That's fine.
Spoke directly.
Yeah, that would be great to get more information. I think that's my hesitation as well. It's just I don't have any information about it, and I'd like.
And for privacy, staff privacy,
Sure.
I don't want to discuss
I
in
understand
open
that.
session.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
so
fair.
that's why.
That's fair.
Okay, Brooke is on here. Brooke, can you hear us okay?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I don't want to give a bunch of detail because this is an open session. I would be more than happy to provide you guys an email tomorrow, but the thing is, this gentleman, he's been with our district for, several years. An amazing, well, sorry. And an amazing teacher, and there is a deadline for Percy. And so this person, would need to apply for Percy, and I don't want to delay this person.
When is the deadline, Brooke?
Well, the thing is their contracts end August 31st, and the application process can take some time. And they have to meet with Percy. They have to go through the whole entire application process. And I mean, and right now, because of COVID, and we do have, you know, several, you know, staff members, not just certified, but classified, not necessarily on our end, but throughout the state, that are not comfortable with coming back. So those that are, you know, eligible for early retirement are applying. And so you know, the insurance benefits end August 31st. And so this person really would need to get rolling on that process in order to have a retirement paycheck by the time September rolls around. And again, I'd be more than happy to provide a little bit more detail in a confidential email, but I do ask, you know, for this person's, you know, family and well-being, that I respectfully ask that you guys approve this. There, again, like Dr. Meyer stated, we would be able to find an adequate replacement for this person.
Okay.
Thank you, Brooke, for letting us know the urgency of that. Can I make a suggestion? Since we are having an executive session tomorrow, can we address this? We have to.
We would be covered under executive session or labeled under BNF. The agenda would have to be amended to add an action item afterwards. Yes. So we have to have a good faith reason why we amended the agenda.
Well, I am looking at the agenda and there is personnel and legal listed on it.
Right, but we have to amend it to add an action item afterwards, and we have to have a good faith reason why we're amending within 24 hours. And it's typically in the case of an emergency.
Because there is an action item, but it's not on that one. Okay, gotcha.
So at this point, we have your motion. I'll second your motion.
I have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if Brooke can hear you. Thank you, Brooke, for helping us out there. But I do request that you do send that information.
She can hear you. She's just muted.
Okay. Under discussion items, this is the first reading for the policy updates for principles and accompanying procedure. I heard this was a long meeting.
Yes. It was a long meeting because this is one of those that made sense to nobody that read it and addressed many different aspects. And I think we made great progress, but I don't know that we're actually finished with it. I went back over it and read it a few times, but it's just one of those things that it was, you know, piece by piece taking it out. And we did end up with a procedure out of it, which was following ISBA's model, and yeah, so that's where we're at with that. Did you have anything to add, Michelle?
I do think it would behoove us to take this one back to the table because it was so overwhelming with the amount of content that was in it, and just making sure the ducks are all in a row before we approve something again that's either contradictory or not inclusive of what it needs to include.
It was a good meeting though. It was longer. It was.
Yes, it was very long.
Anything else on that principles policy? So it looks like we'll revisit that and probably again the discussion after the next one. So no action moving forward again.
Okay? Board member input to future agenda items. I do want to put on the next agenda, I will be bringing that resolution back. It was recommended by our attorney, so it can be thrown in, so we can discuss it in open session. Anything else?
I would just like to, I don't know if this needs to be a future agenda item, why executive session was not part of the agenda. I noticed it wasn't the last one either.
We don't always, there's very specific rules for executive session. And there wasn't anything that was pressing that we wanted an executive session, especially with the extra meetings that we're having right now. And when after the extra meetings, we'll be able to sort how things flush out. So we're trying to be kind of towards time. The meetings are going rather late in the evening. So that's the reason.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. It's good to see you again. Back in the room.
Yeah, that'll be learning curve for me too. Just a- It's really bad.